I felt like was really talked about, especially when it came to taking care of our bodies. And especially when my mom, like I would hear her talk about diets all throughout the time I was growing up. And so, what that did as a young girl is it made me feel like, you know, when it comes to God, we were all spiritual, and everything related to the Lord is a spiritual realm. And then there was this realm of like the dieting world, and the way we take care of our body was completely separate from God. And so for me, that was really confusing. And it wasn't until I was going through my journey out of eating disorders when I was, well, really that kind of came to a close when I was in my teens. But then through my 20s, I had to really relearn everything that I had known. Because, like I said, there was like God over here, and then there was like dieting over here, and there was nothing in between. And so the Lord really had to teach me, and nobody taught me this. It was just the Holy Spirit. And that's what I think is so cool is if the Holy Spirit could do it for me, where he walked me through this and nobody really taught me how to do this. Like taught me how to cook for example. Like my mom will be the first person to tell you, I did not teach Katie how to cook. She's like, I do not know how to cook. And to this day, she still is like, no, that's not my thing. But if the Holy Spirit taught me how to walk out freedom, and I was just in my 20s, I mean, I really didn't know what I was even doing. Then the cool thing is that the Holy Spirit is the same for you, and He can help you walk through this entire journey to freedom. The more that you seek Him, the more that you will find it. The more that you ask for help, the more that He will be your helper. And so, I hope that that's an encouragement to you. But also the cool thing is that the Bible also talks about how if you yourself are comforted by God, then you can use that comfort to go and help others. And so that's our mission here. That's what we're doing through Stronger Together and Dashing Dish in general. Is not only did God totally transform my mind in the way that I saw food in my body, but he did the same for Casey and Sarah and Jessica. And all three of us have really walked through our own journeys that look a little bit different, but we all came to a place where we were like, okay, I need you, Lord, to show up here. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is how do we actually practically incorporate our mindset and our practical way of living and eating and moving our bodies. So we're going to combine the two and we're going to merge them. Then Sarah and Casey and Jessica are going to be from here the next 3 weeks talking about very specific things as it relates to our body. So like things like emotional eating, finding our beauty and our worth in Christ, just very, very deep, specific things. So this is like our last general overview of things. And I think it's not very general, but it really covers a lot. And then we're going to get into more specific things. So we're going to start with our mindset tonight. And I can also give you guys the notes. I can send them along with this Zoom call if that's helpful. But the mindset is, first of all, where we're going to start with that is rejecting the diet mentality. Because so much of what we perceive when we think about food and we don't even know it is a diet mentality. And what do I mean by that? Well, every single thing in our culture, in our world, is about making money. I mean, that's everywhere we look, whether we know it or not. Everything behind our culture is about making money. And so what the diet industry has learned over the years is that women especially, men too, but women especially, would do just about anything and spend just about any amount of money on a few things. And I believe one of those is without a doubt losing weight and also their children. And that's why the baby like world of like gadgets and toys and things are all just, they're booming and making serious bucks because women will spend the money on their kids and on losing weight, right? And so in order to understand how our mindsets need to be transformed and reshaped in this way, we first of all have to understand the truth behind diets, because everywhere we look, they are promising us something. And so it's very easy to get sucked in. It's very easy to be like, maybe that one really does work because my neighbor down the street tried it and it worked for her. Or someone that we know, went on a diet and they lost X amount of weight, and I'm not throwing anyone under the bus, but I will tell you this only because I have permission, is that my older sister, I have two sisters, is she's completely done and free of diets, but for many years, and I'm talking probably from the age of 14 to probably just a few years ago, she went on every diet that I have ever known or seen, and she has lost incredible amounts of weight, and then she gained it all back and more every single time. And where that left her and where she finally came to a place of saying, I'm done dieting forever, is a very, very, I don't want to say messed up because that's not like the proper term, but an incredibly damaged metabolism, to the point where she could eat just a few hundred calories over her metabolic rate every day, her basal metabolic rate. And she said, I don't know why, but I feel like I literally gain a few pounds if I go out to eat. I mean, and it's because her metabolism was so damaged from all of the years of dieting. And she had also other chronic problems with her health because of it. So I'm just going to tell you some scientific facts just in case, if forever, in the future, you think to yourself, maybe this diet is actually the one that works. And this is also something, one last point I want to make, just to kind of give you a practical standpoint here. I always say this joke, but it's such a good joke, but it's true. If there were a diet that worked, don't you think Oprah Winfrey would have found it? And why I say that is because Oprah Winfrey can buy anything she wants. Literally, she is a billionaire. If there was one that worked, she knows all the people and she has all the money, and she would have found it. And guess what? Oprah doesn't diet, and she's claimed and proven over and over that any diet she did try was unsuccessful in the long run. So we'll just look to Oprah if we ever want to question if a diet works. But here's what science actually says. It's scientifically proven that diets teach the body to store fat and retain fat. Slows the rate of weight loss with each diet. So every diet you go on, your body learns how to slow down your metabolism and your fat loss. It decreases your metabolism. It increases binging and cravings. It increases your risk of heart disease. It confuses satiety cues, which means you don't know when you're hungry or full. It causes the body shape to change. And it increases your stress hormones, which equates to greater levels of anxiety and also disordered eating. Now, one thing I also want to say about disordered eating is that a lot of times people think about eating disorders, and especially when I say that I've been through eating disorders, it always kind of bothers me, because I always want to clarify, eating disorders is not just anorexia, being extremely thin and starving yourself, or bulimia. Do you know that eating disorders is any type of disorder when it comes to your eating? So that means it could be binging. So like you eat a whole bag of chips and then you feel terrible after. It could be secret eating. So eating in secret when nobody's around. And I remember when we were little growing up, my mom would go through the drive-thru and she would literally say to us, don't tell your dad that we did this because it's our secret. And so that was like a shameful thing. Like she felt ashamed of going through a drive-thru, and so it was kept secret. So anything that is not brought into the light, that is not something that we would want to hide, that's how you know that something's wrong. That's how you know that it's a sin. Because if anything's in darkness, it's sin. And if we can bring it to the light, we can be free and we can be healed. And so that's why I'm exposing light to these things. And I'm saying, hey, not trying to bring shame, condemnation, point fingers, but I'm trying to say if there's anything in the darkness whatsoever that you feel is shameful, secretive, or that you don't want to reveal, well, then bring it to the light, sisters, because today is the day. And we have the light of Christ that needs to be shining through us today. We don't have, this isn't like I've heard said before, this isn't a dress rehearsal. This is our life. And we have one of them, and we have one body to carry us through, and we need to be able to be a light to the people around us. And that's ultimately why we don't want to live in darkness or shame or sin any longer. It's not just about us, it's about being the light of Christ to the world around us that desperately needs it. So in order to shine our lights, we have to come out of the darkness in every area. So this is why we're talking about how do we overcome these behaviors of the diet culture, the industry that causes us to have so many disordered eating, mindsets. Because it's not just about going on diets. It's not just about being free from diets. That's part of it, yes, because God wants us to live free, but it's ultimately about all of this that spirals down to disordered eating, which is shameful, secretive, and it's keeping us out of our freedom to be able to shine and walk about in freedom and walk and fulfill our purpose. Okay, so that's why we're talking about what we're talking about tonight. So what is the answer to this diet mentality, this diet culture? How do we step out of it? Well, there's a few things that pertain to our mindset. And last week we talked about, renewing our minds. And that's, like I said, an ongoing thing. It really is for the rest of our life. It's not just a one-time thing that we do and then we're free. This is something that we will always have to do, is renew our minds as long as we're here on this earth. But one way that we can kind of overcome this dieting mentality is by asking ourselves, with every decision that we have to make, there's two questions that I ask myself all the time. And that is, how will I feel as a result of eating this? And is this choice beneficial? Now, the thing about these two questions is it's all revolving around changing our focus of food. So instead of thinking, I can eat this because it's healthy, and I can't eat this because it's not healthy, instead, we're going to change our focus of food instead of thinking of something as healthy, good, bad, all of that, because that really does go along with so much of the diet culture. Instead, we're going to think about, what is my focus here when I'm thinking about this food? How will I feel as a result of eating this? And is this choice beneficial? So the first one, this is so important because as we ask ourselves this question, we'll be able to identify and learn how to fuel our bodies just by asking this one simple question. It's not going to be immediate and it's not going to be overnight, but you'll learn as you ask yourself this question. So let's say that I had a bowl of Trix cereal in the morning, okay? And, I'm like, oh, that looks good. Oh, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to have my bowl of Trix with my husband. And it looks really delicious. So I eat the bowl or two of cereal. And then I ask myself, how do I feel as a result of eating this? And I can guarantee you, and I can promise you, you do not feel your best after eating a sugary cereal. However, let's say that you made a Dashing Dish bagel, right, with the oat flour and the Greek yogurt. And that's really all that's in those. You toast it up and maybe you put like a tablespoon of nut butter on each one, and you run out the door and that's your breakfast. Ask yourself then, how do I feel as a result of eating this? And you'll probably feel full and satisfied until lunchtime. And, maybe you need a little bit of a snack, but you will not have that blood sugar drop. And a lot of times people don't even know that their blood sugar is dropping. And what do I mean by that? When we eat something that is very heavy in sugars or processed carbohydrates, meaning like white carbs, so like sugary white stuff, muffins, breads, all of that. That's not homemade dash and dish, but like, the store bought stuff. When you eat that, you have a blood sugar response that dips really low and then, or sorry, it spikes up really high, your blood sugar, and then it dips really low. So that's where you get like the roller coaster energy effect. And so when you eat that, you're going to feel like, whoa, I got a burst of energy, and then extreme drop. And what also happens with that insulin response is then you're going to feel hungry and you're going to be craving more. It's a natural response to insulin where you're like, okay, I need something more to eat. I'm hungry again. So, there's a few ways that we can overcome that insulin response, but we'll go about that as we're talking about the practical next. But it's important to get into that place where you're thinking about, how did I feel as a response to eating, as a result of eating this? Because then you'll be able to identify just naturally, what foods make me feel good and how do I feel when I eat that? Is it really worth it? And sometimes it's not terrible to enjoy something like an ice cream cone and you didn't necessarily feel your best after eating it. But what that question will do is it maybe will allow you to have a smaller ice cream cone. Because let's say that I eat a super jumbo hot fudge sundae with a brownie in it. It might taste delicious while I'm eating it. But I've learned that after I eat something like that, I feel terrible. Not just the night of, but I feel terrible the next day. Like I wake up and like my clothes barely fit because I feel so bloated. I feel so lethargic and tired. I feel so thirsty. Just terrible. And I don't even feel like it's worth it. It's almost like a food hangover. So instead, what I have found is that, like, let's say everyone's out to get ice cream and I have like, a small cone, or just something smaller, or I even eat some of it, I like share it with someone, or I have some ice cream and then I'm kind of just done when I'm done. Then I enjoyed it, but I don't feel terrible after. And let's say I overindulged a little bit. Well, then I don't beat myself up. I just make that mental note. Okay, I didn't feel good after I ate that. Don't do that again because you don't want to feel that way again. Right? And so that's how we step away from that dieting mentality is, okay, tell yourself everything is open to enjoy. However, how did I feel after I ate that? And it'll naturally make you change your habits if you really pay attention, because we all want to feel good, right? And then, is this choice beneficial? Is the question that I also like to ask myself. And this is one where we really partner with God and we bring God in. And so, what I do is I say, "Oh, Lord, Holy Spirit, every single day, help me to make the right choices with my body and with my food choices. Help me to move my body in a way that's pleasing to you. Help me to choose foods that nourish my body. Just help me, Father, to make the right choices with my body, because it is your Holy Spirit that dwells in me. And I want to take care of this vessel that you've given me to house your Holy Spirit." So it's just a simple prayer I pray every day. So then when I'm asking myself that question, is this choice beneficial? What I'm really asking myself is this choice something that's bringing me closer to freedom? Or is it something that's bringing me back to bondage? And it's not that when I say it's bringing me back to bondage that I'm able to just fall right back into an eating disorder. One way that I described this to someone who was walking out eating disorders themselves is that, let's say that you're right here and freedom is over here. Eating disorders are here. You are taking steps away towards freedom and away from that sin. And in order to go back to that sin, you would have to take, let's say, 500 steps backwards. So it's not that you're ever going to have to worry, oh gosh, I made the wrong choice, I'm going to fall back into bondage. That would take 500 steps backwards, and I'm just making up a number. But I will tell you that every time we make a choice to step away from freedom, and we're making a choice that isn't beneficial to our freedom, what that's doing is it's taking a step backwards. And it's not that the Lord is unpleased and he's like, "Oh, I'm done with you. You just keep messing up." No, like God is the one who's calling us to freedom. And he keeps saying, come on over here into freedom. This is what I have for you. Don't get discouraged. Don't look backwards. Don't go the wrong way. He's always prompting us towards freedom and drawing us towards it. But what happens is then we are 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 putting a layer of hardness over our own hearts when we walk in choices that aren't beneficial towards our freedom. And so what I mean by that is it's kind of like putting a layer of wax over something, and it would take a long time to form an actual like hard heart, but it's just a little layer. And so then it's easier to kind of get deceived and get distracted and get into all kinds of little areas where we're in bondage to sin again. And then, we never want to go back to those places where God has already called us into freedom and go back into that. And so that's why we just need to say, is this choice beneficial to my freedom? And then the next part of this is setting healthy boundaries. So when it comes to our mindset, one of the ways that we can walk away from the diet culture and we can walk into freedom is just by saying, yeah, that's really good. Scales over the eyes. That's good. Is by saying, okay, am I setting boundaries? And get honest with yourself that are making it easier to escape and be free from temptations. Because if you're not, that's something that you honestly need to get real with yourself and you need to do it. And it's going to look different for everybody, so I can't tell you what your boundaries are going to look like. But this is something that if you just very practically ask yourself, but also go to the Lord and say, God, show me how I can establish boundaries, he'll show you how to do that. But for me, I'm going to give you a really practical way that I have set a boundary in my own life with food. A boundary is not something that is a diet, and it's not something that's like a diet mentality. It's something that is very beneficial and very healthy. And we know that even with relationships, right? Like you have to sometimes set boundaries, and that's a healthy and a good thing if someone's not healthy and respecting, good things. So we have to do this with food too. And so what I have done is, like, for example, at night for a really long time, I would just like I would find that if I were to eat mindlessly or even binge eat, it was almost always after I would go to a restaurant. And I think there were a few reasons for that, and I think one of them was just in the physical. Restaurant food is very salty. So I would come home and I was very dehydrated and I did not know that. And so what I would do is I would look for something like ice cream. And how I knew it was bondage and how it wasn't beneficial, it wasn't me just eating ice cream because I was like, that sounds good. Let's have and enjoy some ice cream in a balanced, healthy way. It was like I would literally eat a gallon of ice cream. Like I couldn't stop. So I was dehydrated, but also I had this mentality, again, diet mentality, where I would think to myself, I've already blown it. I've already eaten terrible tonight. So I'm just going to go ahead and eat this whole gallon of ice cream or a whole pan of brownies, because why not? I mean, I already blew it. So in order to walk away from that and be in freedom, I had to set boundaries. So I knew that that was like a trigger for me and a temptation when I would come home from restaurants. Because again, I was overly salted out and I wasn't able to make good choices. And then I also was like all in or nothing type mentality. So when I came home from a restaurant, I literally had to tell myself, kitchen's closed, fridge is closed, pantry's closed. The only thing I'm allowing myself to do is have a drink. And now what I mean by drink is, so True Lemon is like little packets of lemonade. So I would like have either some sparkling water with that because it's delicious and it tastes like soda. So if you like pop, or like some really good ice water, like a big, huge ice water with, I always find that if I have like something like a hot drink, so like decaf coffee with stevia, or some tea, or like just some kind of warm drink that doesn't have sugar in it, I find that that was really like it cured my cravings. So I'm only allowed to drink something when I come home from a restaurant. And that has been for years and years and years that I've had that boundary. Now, it's not a rule, it's not a diet mentality, it's just a healthy boundary because I knew that I could not say no when I came home from a restaurant. So there's going to be areas for you, maybe it's like at nighttime in general, maybe you're mindlessly eating at night and you're just not even hungry. So maybe that's when you need to say kitchen's closed after 8 o'clock, period. And if I do have something, I can have X, Y, and Z. Like a bag of skinny popcorn, 100 calorie. That's all I'm allowed to have after 8 o'clock, one of them, and that's it. Like you need to figure out your own boundaries and ask the Lord how to help you form those because that's important to your mentality. And so I could go on and on about that, but I'm going to move on to the next point and then we're going to get into the practical stuff. So the last thing in our mindset and being free from diet mentalities and being free in our minds is walking by the Spirit. And what I mean by this when it comes to food is that a lot of times we think to ourselves, you know, I keep blowing it and I keep, I keep telling myself I'm free in this area, but I'm really not free. And no, that's a really, really easy deception of the enemy is to tell you you're not free. Why try anymore? You've already blown it, or you've done this before. You'll never be free. It's a trick that the enemy tells all of us in many different areas of our life, and it's a lie. So how do you get out of that feeling like you failed and actually rise above it and walk into victory? It's by walking by the Spirit and developing your spiritual muscles. So I'm going to give you a little story about this. When I first started working out, I mean, I always hated exercise, always, since I was little. And I think a lot of it was because I was very unathletic. My dad never played sports or did sports related stuff. My mom definitely didn't. And then I have two sisters. So like, when would I ever learn how to do a sport? So whenever someone would throw a ball at me, I would like hide and duck. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, I can't, no, don't throw a ball at me. So I was always like just not athletic. And so I was like, I'm doomed. Like in my mind, I remember in my gym class when I was like in third grade, my gym teacher yelled at me and was like, Katie, you cannot hide from the volleyball. You have to hit it. You cannot hide and run. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. So I just always thought I was like never going to be able to do anything athletic. But it wasn't until I was in high school and my teacher was so amazing. And it shows the power of a teacher and how they can impact you so much for the good or for the bad. And she said to me, Katie, you're not unathletic. You just haven't found your thing yet. And she's like, all right, let's try kickboxing. So she literally, like, this wasn't even part of her class, her gym class, but she decided to incorporate a kickboxing segment into some of the gym days. And she did it literally to show me that this was something that was not related to a ball or a sport that I could enjoy. And at first I hid in the back and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm not coordinated, but she started to make it so fun. She put such fun music on it, and it was more like dance than even kickboxing. So she's like doing her, moves, and I'm hiding in the back, and she would call me up to the front. And I don't know why she so much poured into and invested in me, but she truly did shape my whole mindset in a way that I thought, I can do this. And so I started doing, even outside of high school, I started doing kickboxing classes, and they were so much fun. And I even got some kickboxing DVDs and I did them at home. And it just taught me that I could do something that was, moving my body that I enjoyed. So that's why I always encourage people, find something, keep trying stuff until you find something you like. because there is something out there. I mean, there's like drums, like cardio drums. I mean, there's so many cool things out there. So I did that, and it always made me, uh, like I never was strong. Like it made me my endurance level was really high. Like I could like move a lot and stuff, but I was never strong. And so I remember watching some guys in the gym and I thought, oh my gosh, how on earth do they ever lift those kind of weights? And then it occurred to me, the Holy Spirit kind of drew this parallel between lifting weights and getting strong in the gym and walking by the Spirit. And now I actually lift weights and I love it, but that's a whole different thing. But the cool thing about lifting weights is it really is a really great parallel of walking by the Spirit. How you might feel when you first go to the gym. And so when I started lifting weights, I kind of left my cardio kickboxing days and I decided to get a little bit stronger and increase my muscle. And when I started doing it, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I mean, it was like that whole mentality again of like, I'm not athletic. This is not for me. I can't do it. No, no, no. But my friend who encouraged me to start lifting weights with her was like, come on, Katie, you can do it. It just takes time. And so I started off and I was lifting like 10-pound bicep curls. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard and terrible. And I remember being so sore after, I mean, for like 2 weeks after doing one upper body workout. And I was like, it's not even worth it. Who does this? Like, why do you want to live sore? Right. And then it was only a matter of time after I consistently did it. And it was consistency. I had to do it like I did one upper body, one lower body, one full body with my friend every week. That not only was I finding that I wasn't as sore eventually, but also I was able to increase my weight. Then, what do you know? I started to see results. And then I was like, I believe I can do this. When did that happen? When did I believe that suddenly I can be athletic in my mind? And now I'm to the point where I feel like I could try anything as it relates to sports or anything athletic. And what a change that was. And really it started off by just training and developing and growing my muscles. And like I said, it wasn't overnight and it wasn't easy. But that's exactly how it is in the Spirit. The more that we walk in choices that are beneficial and we walk towards uh, freedom, the easier these choices will become. And at first you might think, oh gosh, it's so hard to say no to Doritos. Like I cannot say no to them. Every time I see a Dorito, I just want to eat it. And I don't even know what Katie's talking about. Like, just forget it. I'm eating the whole bag of Doritos. But you might honestly think that. And so that's where you need to set boundaries, especially in the beginning when your spiritual muscles are feeling a little bit weak and a little bit atrophied. So what I want you to do is set those boundaries that in the meantime, while you're growing and you're getting stronger, you have that safety net. So maybe you need to put all your Doritos out of the house for now. And you only have Doritos once a week while you go out to the movies, and you have them in a little single size portion bag. Okay, so that's a way of drawing a healthy boundary. The next step could be that you bring the Doritos back into your house. I don't know why you'd want to do that because they make you feel terrible. But let's just say that you're like, you know what? I feel like I'm spiritually strong, and my husband has them in the house anyway. I don't know what your story is behind Doritos. Let's just say you have one. Then you start to put the Doritos in little Ziploc bags. And you're able to, because you're spiritually strong enough, you're able to say, okay, I'm just going to have one of these little Ziploc bags. And then you see how you're getting stronger and you're able to resist. Like you can have them in your house and you're not going to go eat every single little bag. Then you're going to come to a point where then you can have the whole bag in your pantry, and maybe you pull 2 out and you're done. You feel satisfied because you ate 2 Doritos. And I promise you, promise you, promise you, just like I thought in my head, I will never, ever step foot into a gym and be one of those people because it's not me. I'm not athletic. I never will be. I can't do it. Now I'm like lifting weights with all the guys, like the heavy bodybuilders around me. And I'm like, hey, like, I feel totally confident to do it because I have trained my muscles to get to that point, and I'm not sore afterwards. Sometimes I am, but I'm not sore every day. And I look forward to it, and I go back and I get stronger. And it's the same way with every choice that we make when it comes to walking by the Spirit. The more we do it, the more we say yes to the Spirit, the stronger we are in Him, the easier it becomes. It's just like building a muscle. It's easier to increase that weight. And it's like those temptations that once called you out are just not even a thing anymore. It's not even a problem. And so you might look at people who are walking in freedom in this area and you're like, that'll never be me. Or how does this person resist that? Like they just have like a whole cake sticking in front of them, and I would eat that whole thing. I promise you, you can get there, and you need to believe it, but it might not come overnight. It's just by taking these steps to walk by the Spirit, and you'll get stronger and stronger as you obey, as you submit, and as you say yes to Him. So that's our mindset. That's our changing our mindset when it comes to practically walking out freedom. And now we're going to talk about the practical things. So there's a list of a few things that I have here, but if you have questions, I see that there's a chat with like 10 things going on. And so I'm sorry if I've missed anyone's stuff. I've been more or less watching for the waiting room to make sure people are getting in. So I'll make sure I look at the very end to look at the chat. But if you have questions, definitely think of them or write them down or even put them in the chat so that we can go over the practical things as it relates to eating. We're not going to get deep into disordered eating and emotional eating, all of that, because that is going to be covered in one of its own weeks. But we can talk about it a little bit tonight. So we're at 7:38, and I also want to make sure we wrap it up within an hour, so like 20 minutes left. All right, so first of all, let's talk about the very basic foundation. You might already know this. It might be like, that's obvious, but I am going to talk about it in case you don't know, and that is the practical thing about food is macros. You might have heard this term, it's macronutrients, and what that really is when it comes to food is it's a breakdown of carbohydrates, fiber, which is also including fiber, protein, and healthy fats. Why is this important, and what does it have to do with fueling our bodies? So macronutrients, basically, the way that I like to look at it is if you're eating a good balance of whole grains, so like good, healthy, and it's not just whole grains, it's vegetables, it's things like sweet potatoes and fruit. Those are all carbohydrates. So good sources of carbohydrates with high fiber, good sources of protein and healthy fats. If you combine those three and you get good balance of those three, you are going to do yourself so much good. And the biggest good that will do is not only will your body work right, and it will tell you the proper like hunger and full signals, but you also will eliminate cravings. And how I know that is just from my own personal journey to health. Whenever I found that I was like cutting carbohydrates too low, because I do find that I do better with like higher protein and a little bit of healthy fat. So sometimes it's easier for me to kind of cut carbs where I don't really realize it. Then I was finding that I was having a lot of intense sugar cravings. So a way to kind of track and figure out if you're eating the proper balance between these three is to write down what you're eating, whether it's through MyFitnessPal or just journaling, and just kind of figuring that out just for even a few days and figuring out, where am I really, really going like overboard, And for me, it was easy to go overboard in like protein. So I had to make sure that I was fueling my body with the right amount of carbohydrates. It's also really important for our insulin, for our hormones, for our metabolism to be really balanced. The thing that I do want to note when it comes to these three macros is for each one, there's something to pay attention to. For carbohydrates, it's so important that our sources of carbohydrates, more for satiety and also, like I talked about, the insulin response, that when it comes to carbohydrates, that we don't restrict them and cut them off, but that we get the proper source of carbohydrates in our diet. So old-fashioned oats, so oatmeal, that's like a whole grain completely. That is very nutritious and rich in fiber and also nutrition. And that's why I use oat flour in a lot of recipes. When it comes to bread, like I don't really even eat bread because it's so hard to find a really good nutritious bread. I do make my own breads. But if you're gonna eat bread, so like Ezekiel bread is a good one. Dave's Killer bread is organic, and that's a better one. It's a better choice. I used for Maddie for a while. She doesn't really eat bread anymore. She just likes peanut butter out of the jar. She's my kind of girl. And then, like finding wraps, so like whole grain wraps and tortillas. It's just cutting out some of that bread, because the problem with breads is so many times they're just so overloaded with enriched stuff. That's just like really your body, when you eat processed food, it doesn't even recognize it as food. And so what it does is it just literally takes it and it just says, okay, most of this is not even real. And your body will be craving something real. So you won't feel satisfied. You'll be looking for more food, even though you ate the proper amount of calories for the day. Let's say that your body needs 1,800 calories a day for you, and you ate 500 calories in a sandwich, but it's like looking for more food for your meal, and you're like, I don't know why I'm so hungry still. So that's why eating all the food that's just fillers, I'm like, that's why we need to get back to God-made food, the real food that He designed for our bodies, because it satisfies us. So like sweet potatoes are good because they have a lot of nutrition. They're low on the glycemic index. If you don't know what the glycemic index is, again, that goes to insulin response. And you can even Google what foods are low glycemic index. And that was something that was really beneficial in learning for me, what kind of carbohydrates are good for you. Because the ones that are high on the glycemic index are going to be way higher in the insulin response. And then it kind of stores everything as sugar in your body. So fruits are good. All veggies are good. And that's one of the things about keto diets that I'm always like, since when did someone say you could not eat an apple? Like, if we really think about it, like apples are honestly like so nutritious and so good for you. And I'm like, there's just something wrong about this. So that's, again, like really using our common sense to think, is this a wise decision when it comes to diets, right? And so that's how we distinguish what are some good sources of carbohydrates. Whole grains, vegetables, things that are low on the glycemic index, and fruits. Then when it comes to protein, I just always say choose whole organic forms of protein, especially if it's an animal source, if you can. So if it's a cost thing, because it is more costly, buy things in bulk, buy things when they're on sale. That's what I do. And then stock up and put them in your freezer, because animal sources of protein especially can have a lot of hormones in them that can mess with our hormones. So that's the note about protein. And then fats, there are so many good sources of fats. Just make sure you know what are good sources. So avocados, olives. Anytime, a good way of thinking of it is anytime you see canola or vegetable oil, I'm like, since when is there an oily vegetable? Where did they get that? It's obviously like some kind of chemical man-made thing, because it wasn't from a vegetable. No one squeezed celery and got some oil out of it. So that's not real. So that's why I'm like, okay, I use avocado oil, coconut oil, all of those are natural forms of oil. Um, and obviously there's some good healthy fatty fishes, things like that. The only thing I want to take note of when it comes to fat, so like if you're going to scoop out some almond butter and just eat it, is that you need to pay attention to one thing about fat is that it can be very high in calories, very calorie dense. It's not our enemy and it's not a bad thing, just like carbohydrates aren't. But we do need to pay attention. So if there's one thing that I do measure out roughly, and you get better at measuring just by eyeballing it, but especially in the beginning when you're learning, either with a food scale or with measuring cups and spoons, is fats. So like, let's say I'm going to eat some almond butter on a dashing dish bagel. I will generally scoop it out with a tablespoon and spread it on, because that way I know I'm using 2 tablespoons and I'm not just eyeballing it, because it's very easy to go really overboard. And because they're so calorie dense, if you were to eat 4 scoops of almond butter, that's like a whole meal worth of calories. Let's just say you need about 500 calories for a meal. You could easily do that in just a few scoops of a healthy fat. And so that's why I do measure it out. So then let's talk about calories. There's a lot of wrong information about calories, and an easy way to think about calories is this. It's just, do you know in other countries, they actually don't have calories on packaging of food. They have energy. That's what it's called, is energy. So if you think about what your body needs to expend and to use all the energy to do all that you do throughout the day, that's really what food is about, is fueling us back for the energy that we expend. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life is this 1,200 calorie diet mentality. I'm like, who even chose that? Like, who decided that number? And the only thing that I can really think here is that 1,200 for a typical woman who's doing nothing, just sitting there all day, not even moving. That is your basal metabolic rate. So meaning you're just sitting there, you're doing nothing just to survive and have your organs work and your everything else work. It's just using 1,200 calories just to survive. So then someone got in their bright idea, mindset, well, if you eat that many calories, then you'll definitely lose weight. Which, yes, you will lose weight, but you will also starve your body in the process. And what that does is it will cause you to lose weight short term. But there's only a matter of time before you will start binging and you will start craving food and you will start needing all the food. And then your body will, because it's in this starvation mode, it's going to store everything that you eat as fat. And that is an actual scientific proof. I mean, I have read so many scientific books, and I'm like, I love, love, love learning about the body that has verified this, that I'm like, why don't people actually hear this truth behind this dieting mentality? So what is good for calories? For every person, it is going to be different. But I will tell you, if you are honestly thinking, how do I lose weight and how many calories do I need? Well, first of all, I don't want anybody tracking calories, especially long term. But for this program, I have told you, if you're in a place where you want to lose weight and you've tried everything in your mindset and you're thinking, I don't know what to do, I do recommend using MyFitnessPal or tracking your food for a short period of time. I'm talking the very most 6 weeks during this program as an eye opener to see and to learn and to learn your body and to learn, why are you going through these cycles? Why are you craving carbohydrates? Maybe it's because you're not eating enough. Maybe you need to eat more calories. Maybe because like my sister Emily, who's my younger sister, she's so busy with 2 little kids. Sometimes she's like, Katie, I am like, I don't even think I eat like 700 calories a day. I'm so busy. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, you need to just write it down for a few days, make sure you're eating enough, you know? And so that's something that could be beneficial and helpful, is just to track calories for a short time, just to learn. So if you're kind of wondering how many calories do you need, I would say a very good middle ground for most women is going to be 1500. Now that's very minimal. I would say that me, and I'm 5 foot. Now, this is not for anybody to learn and to take and say, oh, that's then if Katie's doing that, I'm going to do that. Is that I found for me, my body needs, and this is just by rough tracking here and there to figure out, about 1800 calories a day. Now, I'm 5 foot. I do, though, work out 4 days a week in the gym, weight training. So that my metabolic rate has definitely risen since I've started doing weight training. So it needs fuel to build muscle. I also am in a stage of my life where I'm having to fuel a reproductive system. So, like, because I'm in my childbearing years. So, like, if you're outside of that and you've gone through menopause, you may need less calories because it takes actually fuel to run fuel your hormones to have a reproductive system going. So, like, there are so many factors that go into this. Are you weight training? How old are you? What is your current weight? Do you want to lose weight or do you want to maintain weight? So all of this goes into it. If you want to lose weight, though, I will tell you the very most that I would consider, if you just start tracking, what do I eat in a day? What does a typical day look like? And don't try and do anything special. Just write it down and figure it out. Maybe drop off at the most 200 calories per day. So it's that slow, steady, gradual, consistent, just those 200 calories a day. Taking that off will help you lose weight and your body will not go into starvation mode. So let's say you find out you're eating 2,200 calories a day. Take off 200, maybe through some coffee creamer and like some little things here and there. It's amazing how it adds up. And then you will find that doing that consistently, day in and day out, you will lose weight and you will keep it off. The cool thing too is that when your body loses weight in a steady, slow, progressive way, not only are you not going through the starvation and all of that, but you are also not harming your metabolism, and it's something that your body will sustain naturally. And then you will be less hungry, so you won't need those calories to sustain because your body is smaller now. Um, so let's also talk about how do we cut, some calories out without feeling hungry and still feel satisfied. And this isn't for everybody. This is like if you're trying to lose weight and you want to do it without drastically cutting things. And I'm just trying to teach a more balanced approach. So you have to find out where you're at and if this applies to you. If you are looking to cut, let's say, 200 calories a day from what you're already normally eating, one of the best ways to do that is two things: volume eating and liquids. So volume eating is just basically taking what you would normally eat. So let's say you really enjoy pasta and like that's your thing. Maybe you can replace and swap out some of the pasta with a vegetable. So you add in some broccoli to your pasta. So it's more full. It fills your bowl and your mind and your eyes see a big bowl full of food. So you feel satisfied. You do have some pasta in there still. But you're cutting back on some of the calories. And then you also feel satisfied in your stomach. So that's one of the ways that you can just very easily cut back on some calories and really you feel satisfied, and you feel satisfied mentally too. And just adding veggies, adding fruits, those are really a God-given way to add volume to our foods without adding a lot of calories. And then, like I said, maybe a way to do that also is to just start to measure out and figure out what you're actually eating, because sometimes eyeballing things is really tricky at first. And then the next one is liquids. So I love, like I said, to drink a ton of liquids. I mean, I literally have like water with me, sparkling water, True Lemon, a warm drink, not caffeine though. I only drink coffee once in the morning because caffeine can dehydrate you. As much liquid as you can get, the better, because our bodies are mostly water, and you truly will feel satisfied, and you will not feel like you have those cravings and all of those hunger cues that are off will be just completely fixed by getting enough water. And if you're not like a true water person, then True Lemon is like my favorite, but also lemon water, whatever does it for you, as long as it's not calories and sugar adding. And then let's talk about metabolism and how do we then build that back up. And I'm going on an hour here close, so I'm going to kind of try and wrap it up quick. But I could talk about this stuff all day. So if you guys have questions, ask it on the Facebook group too, or you could email your coach or myself. But metabolism, one of the ways that I have learned has seriously helped my metabolism is by, like I said, eating enough. So if you're not eating enough and you're finding that you're like 700 calories a day, you're not eating enough. And I know it might seem scary to eat more than 1,200 calories, but I promise you, if you are moving your body, you are burning more than 1,200 calories. I like also to wear my Apple Watch and to mark out my steps for a day, the days I don't work out. I just like to make sure I'm getting enough movement. So a good way of doing that is making sure that you're getting like 5 to 10,000 steps a day, just to make sure you're getting the movement in. It's not like a religious rule. Like I'm not like, oh, I haven't gotten, most of the time I don't even wear my watch. But I like to just make sure I'm moving. So all of that adds up, and it also increases your metabolism. So eat enough, but also build muscle. And so you can do that without any weights. You can literally do that by using your own body weight, which is so cool. And Jessica actually leads a lot of our workouts that are just simply body weight. So you could go on YouTube and you could find a bar workout. Bar is something that is using your body weight. Yoga, Pilates are all using your body weight. Body weight squats, push-ups, all of that. You don't even need a dumbbell. But I'm telling you, using the resistance of your own body weight is going to increase your metabolism. So if you are someone that's just walking, that's incredible and awesome, and keep it up. Moving your body is the key, but if you can find at least 3 days a week where you are using your body weight to do things for at least a half hour a day, that is going to really help increase your metabolism. Because building muscle, just sitting here, I'm burning calories because I have built muscle. And so how cool is that? I mean, you just sit there and you burn calories. But there's a lot of benefits to building muscle outside of just calories, and that is without a doubt, as women age, we have a increased chance of losing bone density. And so when we build muscle, that's so important for our bone density, for our bones to stay strong our whole life. And then let's also talk about a few more things. One is cravings. Again, we'll go through a lot more of that through one of this weeks specifically, but I just want to touch on cravings because it's a real thing, especially with hormones going all over the place with women and all of that. And it's just a real thing in general. I mean, like, let's be real. Who doesn't sometimes just want a piece of chocolate or something, right? Like everybody's cravings are different. But for me, it's without a doubt, it's sweets. It's not salty stuff. So some people out there like their salty stuff. I know. So you have to find, going back to like the same boundaries, you have to find things that fit into what do you crave that is a healthy, good way that you can satisfy that. You have to find those things. And I will share my own personal, but it's not going to be the same for you probably if you have like salty, but if you like sweets, it might be. I like my no bake balls, like I've said it before, in the freezer, and I pull them out of the freezer and I eat them frozen. Legitimately, like practically break my teeth off trying to eat them, but that's what I enjoy. And I put stevia chocolate chips. It has chocolate in them, and like it tastes like cookie dough straight from the freezer. That's what I enjoy. And so I found that works, and it's like 60 calories for a ball. And so I'm not like, even if I ate two of them, it's not going crazy, right? And then like Sarah Schaefer shared that she likes dark chocolate and she sucks on it. And like, she's like, you can't chew it. You have to literally suck on it. And it's like my thing. And so she has found her thing. You have got to find, maybe it's a 1 minute chocolate mug cake from Dashing Dish. You've got to find your thing to curb your cravings, because we all have them and they're going to come around eventually. And so when they come, you have to know a healthy, balanced way to satisfy them that's not going to cause you to go overboard or feel like I've blown it. Might as well just go for the whole thing, right? So find your thing, and then if you have questions of like ideas, I'm happy to share more ideas. I just don't want to like have this be a 2-hour call talking about cravings. And then the last thing is eating out and social eating. And so this is all just very practical stuff to walking out freedom. A lot of times when it comes to eating out, I don't like to eat out more than twice a week if I can. So if I have a choice to eat at home, I'll say, hey, I'll make a meal for you guys. You guys come on over, versus going out multiple times a week. Because I almost always try and go on either a date night or go out with my family on the weekends. So like there's already one or two. And then throughout the week, let's say something comes up with friends, I'm like, I'll cook you guys a meal. And like I'll do a taco bar and I'll put a bunch of meat in my crock pot and then like make a bunch of taco stuff and let everyone make tacos. So it's super easy and inexpensive. But that way, I'm not going out like 5 times a week. And I find that if I go out more than twice a week, then it's like it starts to kind of affect the way that I feel, the way my clothes fit, all of that. So that's kind of a rough rule for me, is like 1 or 2 times a week. And then when I do eat out, it just depends. But usually I try and find something that makes me feel good, so I don't feel terrible after I eat it, and something that is beneficial to my freedom. So like we talked about those two things. I don't usually eat a massive bowl of pasta because I know I'm going to feel terrible after. However, let's say I choose to eat a pasta dish. Like maybe I'll choose one that's full of veggies and then I'll eat half of it and bring the rest home. Or I'll choose a really delicious salad that has like everything I like about it. And then maybe I'll even custom add some things to it so that it's really delicious to me. And trust me, I've gotten really good at like asking for special things and I don't feel ashamed at restaurants. And why I don't is because I feel like the whole world is very picky now, like with everybody, saying like if they have gluten intolerance and all these different intolerances. I mean, I feel like everyone special orders everything now. So don't feel guilty or weird about it. Split things. And then, if you decide I really just want to go and I want to have my favorite burger and I just want to go for it, then go for it. And, you have to look at your health and eating out and being social as a big picture. And God called us to freedom. But part of that freedom is also knowing that you're not going to be trapped in like this little tiny box that you've built for yourself for the rest of your life. You have to come to a place where you say, maybe your goal weight is like the X amount of weight. But you also have to ask yourself, are you willing to do what it takes to get there and to stay there? Because you want to be able to walk in freedom, and that's in every area when it comes to food. And if you're sitting there like, I can only eat a kale leaf for the rest of my life in order to stay a size 0, then I promise you're not walking in freedom either, because you're not like, if you have to go out and you have to like calculate every calorie just to like even eat out with friends, then I'm like, that person isn't living in freedom. And let's be real about that. So you have to come to a place where you're like, is this freedom for me? And is it allowing me to enjoy my favorite food at my favorite restaurant every now and then here and there? And and that's part of the big picture. And so this is all really just a big picture thing at the end of the day, where you're like, is this choice beneficial and leading me closer to freedom in every area? And also, how do I feel as a result of eating this? Well, I didn't feel my best there, so tomorrow I'm going to make some good choices. And so that's why I like those two questions, and that really is the anti-diet solution in my mind. So now I'm going to wrap up by seeing if there's any specific questions that I didn't get to. Someone said in the comments, if you click on remaining calories, it will bring up calories, nutrients, and macros. And so that's on MyFitnessPal. Yeah, that's true. MyFitnessPal, it's always a free trial on MyFitnessPal. You never have to pay for it unless you want them to write you a specific plan. I would never do that because you really don't need it. It's really, like I said, it's not a long-term solution, because here's why. It's going back to that freedom thing. If you're doing MyFitnessPal for the rest of your life, you're not in freedom, in my opinion. Some people would argue me on that, so it's just my opinion. But I'm just saying, here's why I think it's not, is because you're going to be having to be like, I just went to a party with friends. I ate four carrots and 3 chips. What kind of chips were they? I'm not sure. And then you're like freaking out and you can't even enjoy yourself at the party. That's not freedom. So, but if you're going to use it for a time being, then use it for most of days of the week for a short period of time to figure out where your body falls with macronutrients and calories, what you kind of need to shift. So you can see all that on the free trial. You don't need to upgrade. So there's lots of questions about that. So I hope that answered. Portion control. Okay, so there's a few things with portion control. You might want to get a food scale. You can get them very inexpensive, like $10 to $20 on Amazon, or like even at Walmart or something. And you might want to start measuring things in ounces and figuring out, what does it look like to have a portion of meat. So 4 ounces is a good rule of thumb for meat, let's say. And you look at the back of the cheese thing and you're like, 3 ounces is 100 calories. Okay, so that's a serving. So I'm going to put 3 ounces of cheese on this. And you're just measuring so you can figure out in your mind, and you can see, what does a portion look like? And then writing them down in MyFitnessPal and weighing them out or measuring them out with a cup or a tablespoon is really good learning skills. These are learning things. It's not how you have to live the rest of your life. I don't ever take out like a scale and sit there and like measure my ounces of everything, but it was helpful in the beginning to learn. So that's a good way of kind of figuring out portion sizes in the beginning. I think that was all the questions. It looks like you guys have really done well this week, just by all the things that you've responded to so far. So I hope that this was helpful, and I could literally talk about these subjects because this is my heart. This is the heart behind what we do at Dash and Dish, which is combining the physical, the practical, the spiritual. Because like I said in the very beginning of this, it cannot be all spiritual, because we have to eat. We have bodies and we have taste buds, and God gave us those for a reason. If we're just going to be like, no, I just want to fuel my body just so I can have fuel, like that's a lie, because you have taste buds, right? So we want to enjoy ourselves. We want to enjoy our lives. We want to enjoy food. Even in Ecclesiastes, it talks about it's so good to eat and drink and enjoy the work that you do. Why is that? Because God made beautiful, delicious food for us to not only taste, but to smell, and it's beautiful looking in different colors and variety, so that if you don't like an apple, you have a peach. There's so many things that God designed for our bodies that nourish it. And it really is just going back to those basic things and not overcomplicating it. So anyway, so that's what we are learning about this week, is taking the practical things and the spiritual and combining them. And then going forward, we're going to get into the more specific topics for the remaining Stronger Together. But this week is honestly my favorite. And I'll be on Facebook group a lot this week if you guys have specific questions, because there are different areas definitely to dive into if you have questions. So anyway, ladies, it's 8:11, so I'm going to let you guys go, and hope you guys have a great rest of your night. It's been such a pleasure and honor to chat with you guys tonight, and praying for you guys. So have a good rest of your night. Bye, ladies.